This episode of the Atoms podcast is titled Schematic Symbols for Passive Components. Every circuit has to have some kind of power, so why don't we start there? The first symbol we'll look at is ground. There's really two common ways to draw it, either as a rake or as a triangle. These both mean ground. A circle and the name of the node is a common way to draw power nodes. Here we're shown VCC, or you could have just put the voltage there instead. Batteries are drawn using alternating long and short lines. The long line on the top indicates the positive side of the battery, while the short line on the bottom indicates the negative side of the battery. The designator used is usually the letter B or the letters BATT, followed by whatever number it is in the circuit, as well as the voltage of the battery. The first component we're going to actually look at are resistors. There are two different ways to draw a resistor. The first is with squiggly lines, and the other is as a box. Depending on what part of the world you're in, or what part of the world that the schematic came from, either of these symbols can be used for fixed resistors. Potentiometers are variable resistors, which are shown with an arrow to indicate where the wiper of the potentiometer is. The designator for resistors is the letter R, while the value is shown in ohms. Sometimes, instead of a decimal point, the K will be placed between the two letters. So for example, 2K2 means 2.2 kilo ohms. There are two main types of capacitors, polarized and non-polarized. The positive side of a polarized capacitor will be drawn with a plus sign, while the negative side will have a curved line. Variable capacitors, also known as tremors, will be a capacitor symbol with an arrow drawn through it. The designator is the letter C, while values are shown in farads, along with letters like U and P to indicate micro or picofarads. When thinking of the symbol for a coil or inductor, think of a wire being wrapped around a core, and then you'll see how it relates to the symbol. The value is typically in henries, and the designator is the letter L. Push buttons will be drawn differently depending on whether they are normally open or normally closed. NO and NC do not actually refer to the designators, but they're just the type of switch they are. The designators for a button is SW. Speaking of SW, let's talk about actual switches, like toggle switches. There's a number of different types that are out there: single pull, single throw, single pull, double throw, or double pull, double throw. Since switches and buttons are so similar, they share the same designator, the letters SW. Lastly, these symbols wouldn't do much good if they weren't connected, so there's a number of ways to show that things are connected. For example, a simple wire is just a line connecting two components. There's also two other ways to show that a connection is made on a schematic. First, if the lines have the same name, even though they're not physically connected, there is an implied connection. And second, if lines cross each other, a dot indicates that there is a connection. If two crossing lines do not connect, draw a hump over one of the lines, or don't place a dot. Okay, so now we've taken a look at a bunch of the different types of passive components used in a circuit. For example, can you look at the schematic and tell what each of these components are? In the next video, we're going to take the same kind of look at active components like diodes and ICs.